right along to speaker number 4. Scott is our speaker number 4. Raquel, could you please share with us Scott's objectives for tonight?
Tonight, Scott will be hosting a radio talk show. I will be looking for how positive of an image he is presenting, how factual the information is, how much does Scott understand the dynamics of a successful talk show, and his prepared questions for his guests. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Raquel. Today, Scott will entertain us with his radio talk show, The Ocean Show. Come here and what's in and what's not in the age of COVID-19. The Ocean Show. Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Hello, everyone out there. I'm Scott Auchmoody, and this is The Ocean Show. Today, where we talk about everything having to do with the ocean. You can hear us live on KXFM, Laguna's radio station, 104.7 on the FM dial, or on our YouTube channel, Ocean Show. First off, a shameless plug about my dive club. I belong to this dive club called the South Orange County Dive Club. I've been scuba diving for 23 years, and I love this club. I am happy to say that once again, we are meeting each Saturday at 9 a.m. in the back of the pavilion's parking lot to go diving in Laguna Beach. And you may know this club is the one that cleans up Crescent Bay each year, does during the beach cleanup, as it's done for over 20 years. It's also present at the Avalon Harbor Beach cleanup and the Dana Point cleanup. If you're a scuba diver, please join us for one of our local dives in Laguna Beach, or one of our many boat charters to the Channel Islands, including Catalina. As you may know, the beaches have opened up mostly. I'll be talking about that in just a moment, but today we have a special treat for you. Renowned local businessman and surfer David Michaela is here with us in studio. But first, about those beaches opening up. What can you do in the ocean today? For a while here in Laguna Beach, you couldn't go to the ocean at all. The beaches are opened again, but for over 2 months they were closed. They're not quite opened all the way. They are open for, as they say, active recreation with physical distancing. And you may ask yourself, what does that mean? What can you do? What can't you do? Well, here's some of the things you can't do. No more beach volleyball, no sunbathing, small groups only, and no monster parties. And don't bother bringing your towel unless you plan on carrying it with you because you can't sunbathe. You're thinking, but what can you do? You can go down to the beach and you can walk, you can run, you could surf, you can play in the water, scuba dive, snorkel, you can do SUP, stand-up paddleboarding, ocean swimming, you could walk your dog, on a leash of course. The beach access has been mostly restored by the City Council, and that is great news. As a scuba diver, I'm very excited about this. People ask me why I like to dive in Laguna Beach, and there's two main reasons. The one is the incredible formations underwater and the kelp beds, which are home to amazing sea life. Also, Laguna Beach is an MPA, a marine protected area, and that means it's a no-take zone, so there's no people fishing and taking the fish out of there. It's always good. The other reason is the prevailing swell is from the northwest, and that means in Laguna, we're in the shadow of the island Catalina, which means usually small waves and great visibility. But what about when the swell comes from another direction? Among scuba divers, we know when the conditions are not good for diving, it's generally good for surfing. And with that, I'd like to introduce our guest, David Michaela. David is the CEO of the People-Centric Group, a company that builds businesses and develops people. David is passionate about people and loves creating shared adventures, surfing, stand-up paddleboarding, and sailing. So everyone, I'd like you to meet David Michaela. David?
Scott, thank you for having me as a guest on your show. It's great to be here. I've heard so much about your show, and I'm so happy I could be here with you.
Well, as I know you're a longtime surfer in Laguna Beach, how long have you been surfing?
Well, that's a great question, Scott. I can tell you that my first memory of surfing was documented on a picture that I have to this day of me on a small little wave at Doheny when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
But I wasn't your typical surfer standing sideways. I was actually, maybe this is where my love for stand-up paddleboarding came in. I was standing straight ahead looking towards the shore instead of standing looking to the side of the wave. So that shows how much I knew about surfing at 5 years old.
That's okay. So what's special about surfing in Laguna Beach?
Well, I've surfed some of the best waves around the world. I lived in Hawaii for many years, so I've surfed some of the greatest waves over there. And the one thing that I love about surfing in Laguna Beach is that it reminds me of Hawaii. The water's clear, as you were saying before, and you have the reef formation. It's not coral reef, but rock reefs, and the kelp beds keeps the water crystal clear. And there's a lot of reef breaks, like in Hawaii, the waves break over reef, whereas a lot of other breaks in California are beach breaks.
Well, that is great stuff, David. I'd like to open up the phone lines for questions for myself or David. So if you have a question, please take yourself off mute and ask away, and we'll see if we can answer you. This is the Q&A section, lasting 2 to 3 minutes. Do I have any questions out there? And if not, I'll jump in and ask David another question. What is your favorite local spot in Laguna Beach?
Well, for surfing, I would say Oak Street, because there's multiple breaks at Oak Street on a big south swell, as you mentioned. There's Brooks that breaks a big left that breaks it like Pipeline in Hawaii. And there's a right break that breaks into it. So you have your choice of either different direction of waves at Oak and Brook Street.
I have a question for David.
Hi, Shabnam.
Hello. David, have you ever been diving?
Yes, I have.
And what are your thoughts about diving?
Well, I like to free dive, but I have not put enough trust into a tank on the back of my back to keep me alive. That's something that, unlike Scott, has put a lot of trust into his tanks because he's a qualified diver. But I like going under the water with a mask and a snorkel and holding my breath for a couple minutes, but not with a tank.
Thank you.
Great question, though.
Great question, Shabnam. Anybody else out there who has a question for David or myself?
Scott, my question for you is, I can't remember if you mentioned before, if you have been surfing. Have you been surfing before?
I have been surfing, but I'm very bad at it. I had a surfboard when I was about 15, and I managed to get scared at one point during a break, and I pushed the surfboard forward. It nosed in and shot back, and the skeg cut my my stomach quite a bit, and that kind of turned me off from surfing for a while. So I stuck with foam core boards and boogie boards and things, which is a lot of fun and not quite as nice. You can't quite shoot the tube on a boogie board, but it's still good stuff.
I have one more question for both of you. I've always loved to be able to snorkel or do diving. However, I am claustrophobic, and in your experience, in both of your experience, how does that does that even play a role?
It does. I taught scuba for quite a number of years, and the being claustrophobic, people have a hard time usually with just having the mask on their face, or if they're wearing a hood, which you need to in colder waters. And that, I think the feeling of having something around their neck usually bothers people if they're claustrophobic. And actually with that, we were just about at the break time at 3 minutes, so I've got to pass it back, and back to you, Mr. Thank you very much for your question, Shabnam, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Nice job, Scott.
And we will now pause for just a minute. Can I please get a timer for 1 minute and send all your feedback to Scott? Thank you.